isn't as available if you're wearing gloves and there's no belt. And so there's modified versions of underhooks and things that may pop up in other martial arts. But there's only so many ways that human bodies move and hurt each other, so you're bound to get repetition. But yeah, very, very, very easy. There's ways of making this more impactful, and there's ways of doing it against people that are better, that you can sort of increase your odds. The only reason I don't show those initially is because there's always a higher chance of injury. Okay? Anytime you make something more impactful, a little bit more technical, there's a greater chance that someone puts a foot wrong, does a little bit too hard, doesn't control the descent, etc. But I will just show you, just briefly without the impact, just how you can adjust these techniques. So one of my favorites, see, the reason I keep going for the underhook is that my whole style of sumo was underhook. So as soon as there's an opportunity to get an underhook, like even if I'm teaching an overhook, my body has to go for the underhook first. So here, I mean, obviously from this position, like you've got knees for days, so you can do whatever you want. There's a lot of ways you can do this turn. You've got striking opportunities. Obviously, the longer you stay static in this position, yeah, exactly, right? You are vulnerable. This is a moment in time. It is not a control position. The control position that I use from here, it's what I do use an underhook, okay? And I'll go just like a belt. That's what. Yeah. So just so I don't break your shoulder. Okay. So I'll straighten that arm out and put pressure down on the shoulder, and now I've got an actual control position where I can hold someone and explain to them the error of their ways. Okay. There's no joint lock, but there's good torque against her neck and against her shoulder there to keep her relatively static. Okay. Until she decides to either stand up or move forward. She moves forward, she goes on the ground. She stands up, she goes backwards. So that's just an adaptation that I use for law enforcement security types where you don't want people near your belt. So we go back to this. So we go back to here. The way this one going backwards is a lot more to play with. So as you stand up, here, okay, clearly I can make this a strike if I wanted to. It's very easy. You don't have to, but if you don't like the person, it can work. Okay, here you can reap. Okay, you can do a foot sweep. My personal favorite is actually doing a double sweep. So I actually sweep the far leg. So as they're coming up, it becomes like that. Alright, and that ends up with a very spectacular splat. Usually no one wants to partner with me again.
You know when you do that and you cross over both their legs to take the furthest leg, do you not risk you going down with them to get
it does take a lot of practice to get the movement fine without losing your balance. But especially if I see someone has their feet sort of closer together, which one you get? Just like that. As they stand up, it becomes, too shifty. I've got to take both. And then it ends up more of a flat back bump rather than a side bump. So that's one version. The other thing that you can do from here as they stand up is you actually turn it into when judo would call it a soda macacomy, where I've actually bypassed her chin altogether and I'm taking all my body weight on her shoulder and overstepping. So that is a very heavy fall. Because my whole closing the door, to use that technique from before, that is swinging all the way through.
That was an action shot there, maybe.
You've got to be a dick to throw someone like that. He's not expecting it. Okay. It's very, very impactful. So there's different ways of dirtying it up, making it a little bit more aggressive, but the basics work as well. So I'm a big fan of anything I do from a self-defense point of view, combatives point of view. Could I use it to restrain a family member I don't want to hurt? And can I use it to save someone's life? If it doesn't tick both those boxes, it doesn't go to the top of my training list. I want to be able to dial things down and dial things up. Because good self-defense shouldn't result in me hurting someone I didn't want to hurt. And it shouldn't result in me going to jail, which is much higher chance of me being involved in future violence than if I didn't do anything in the first place. Okay? In fact, sometimes it's better to take a kicking than it is to go to jail. So, I like to have options of scaling up or scaling down. And that's why I don't like the kill everything all the time approach, because I think it.
If you're going at level 10, you have to go.
Well, that's right. If you're level 10 all the time, how are you going to respond to your teenage kid who has a mental health issue?
Level 11.
What happens when Nana's taking a swig of gin with her pills, right? Hey, I'm not here to tell you how to run your family. I just think it's useful having other skills. And other skills don't have to mean you're doing completely impractical stuff. Right? wrestling is another skill that you can do in a way that doesn't hurt anybody if you know what you're looking for. Okay? But on the same time, you don't want to be practicing skills that are only useful against passive resistance, or only useful against people that are weaker, or only useful when there's not a real threat, because unless you've got a lot of training time, you kind of, you're not getting most bang for your buck. So I like skills that I can modify and dirty up when I need to. Throw a little bit of dirt in it, just rub it around a little bit. Okay. So, next technique, we're probably only going to